Williamowsky.
Adam, you there?
I'm here, loud and clear.
All right, so I'm so happy. I am joined now by Matt Davis and Adam Williamowsky. All we see is Matt's beautiful mug on the screen. Trust me, if you've ever seen Adam, that's all we need to see. Two of these guys, two of my Richmond teammates, if you want to call them that, they were actually very active on the battlefield, especially Matt. All right, what'd you guys think? I want to go with Wilmo first. Wilmo, Jayden Daniels.
I mean, seriously, great to hear your voice, brother. I love you. But, I mean, this is just a long time coming. I mean, people were calling me, like, what do you think? What do you think? Like, it's just a long time coming. I mean, it's been misery here forever. I mean, 20-plus years. Like, I can't even remember. It's been at least 10 years since I've been to a Redskins Commanders game at FedEx Field or whatever it's called now. And, I mean, we just deserve it. That's all I can say is that we, the town, the fans, who've been suffering for 20 years, have been fans for 30, 40, 50 years, deserve it. Deserve the hope. I mean, what a play, right? Like, yeah, we didn't win the Super Bowl, but, I mean, there's hope, and that's all we can ask for.
Davis, do you think now is it possible that Eli Williamowsky could play someday with Jayden Daniels? Like that could happen.
Hey, I watched him. He's a ninth grader starting on varsity. I watched him 2 weekends ago. He looks good for a ninth grader.
Hey, so
I mean,
that's
big boy.
Sousa. So look, you got to pull up just now this afternoon. They wrote another piece on WashingtonPost.com, and the first half of the article talked about he had 13 seconds to throw the ball. Like,
okay, hold on. Let's get some context. First of all, Adam. All right. First of all, Davis's connection is much better than yours, but that's fine. Second of all right, so you guys, this is a serious story. So Bullis High School, you guys had a head coach who was absolutely like a light for everybody there in the program. And I know he mentored your son, Eli, who really is a good player. So he lost his life tragically right at the start of the season. Like what's going on around that team and that school in that area?
Yeah. So, look, I went to Bullis where my son Eli goes now. He's been there for 3 years. And 2 years ago, the head coach who'd been at the school for 10, 12 years was an assistant coach and security for the school, became the head coach. And it was our last summer practice of the year. And he, fell ill and passed away a week later. And it's just been a tragedy. I mean, there's no other way to say it, but the team, the community, the entire Bullis family, pulled together. We're 7-1. We got 2 games left in the season against our 2 arch rivals this week, Landon this week and Georgetown Prep next week. And I mean, it's just been honestly, great to see the kids, the coaches, the entire community to, come together like this and do this. And it's been like phenomenal to watch, to be part of it, to see the kids play. It's our motto became Play for Ray. And that was his name, Ray Butler, and just play for Ray and hear the stands, chant that chant, and the players every game walk out on the field with giant billboards of Coach Ray, printed out for him. And, that's been the mentality, and it's been something great to see.
Davis, you saw it up close and personal, right?
Yeah, they look good. They played Episcopal High School 2 Fridays ago. I was fortunate enough to make it out there. Team looks really good, and we're rich in talent in the DMV here, Pete. We got a lot of good football, a lot of good basketball here.
All right, Matt. I want to hear you talk, and Wilma, stay on the line. Don't get ADD and leave. Matt,
I'm here.
All right, really, what did you? Because I want to ask you about. We're going to talk Richmond in a second. What do you think about Jayden Daniels for real? And this is I want true serum coming through, because you and I talked early in the season. I was like, man, I don't know. It's too early to tell. But even plays like yesterday, like that magical stuff, is he better? Here's a good question. Is he better than RG3's rookie year?
I believe so. I mean, the biggest difference I see is just, his overall presence and poise, but he throws guys open, constantly throwing guys open. His ability to extend a play, with his feet or with his scrambling ability is like nothing we've ever seen. I just think that I definitely think that, he's got more upside at this point than RG3 does, even though he provided a big spark for us a bunch of years back. I do think he's a special player. The worry with me is with Jayden is every time he takes off, I'm like, don't get hit, get down, because he is not a big guy, and that's my number one concern with him is moving forward is just the longevity and the health with his body style, and he does like to take off from time to time, but he's just got to get down.
All right, we talked about that's a good take, Matt. By the way, we talked about the rich in the DMV area, right? Wilmo, of course, we're talking about Maryland, DC, and Virginia. Adam, how good of a player was Matt Davis coming out of Gonzaga High School? Like, do you remember him?
I mean, so let me tell you my first memory. Let me tell you my first memory of Matt Davis. So Trey Teichelman, right? Was that our strength and conditioning coach? So our summer before our freshman year at college, it was different back then. The 1990s, like you didn't show up in college until in August is when you would show up. So I was at Ocean City, Maryland, and we got our printed out workout book from Trey Teichelman, and I go to the local gym there, and I walk in, and there's like two other meatheads working out, like this big guy, and then this really bowling ball of a running back, and lo and behold, who was it? It was Rob Bella, Matt Davis, and that was my first memory of Matt and Rob. And look, right afterwards, it was before the days of the internet, so it's harder to find out who was who. But I mean, look, Davis was a legend. I hear more stories about him now than I did back then. I've coached youth football with other Gonzaga guys, and I mean, like everything I've heard about Davis. I mean, look, he was Timmy Award Player of the Year in the DMV. I mean, Gonzaga Athletics Hall of Fame. I mean, I don't think it gets any more prominent of a high school football player than Matt Davis in this area. And I hear that from people whenever I say Richmond and Gonzaga and this, that, or the other. They always talk about Matt Davis.
All right, so I love it because I think Davis should have played in the NFL, but whatever.
Thank goodness Adam's being really kind today. There's
what do you guys think about? So we have like a notable Richmond alum who's really in the eye of the storm right now, Joe Douglas. How do you guys? I think he's done a really good job, like amassing talent and getting them in the right places to play for the Jets. But the team just seems like they can't get out of their own way. What are your guys' thoughts? Adam, you go first about Joe.
I mean, look. I mean, Joe is in a tough position, right? Like they sign a quarterback who's at the end of his career. You look at the Redskins years ago, what they did. When they signed Bruce Smith at the end of his career and Deion Sanders and Davis. I'm blanking who the quarterback was back then that they signed. But it was someone at the end of his career. And I mean, look, they have a very short window to win in New York. Aaron Rodgers only has so much time left. With his body and his arm and everything. And I mean, look, it's very hard in football. You have to have a continuity and a team and, offense, defense, special team. They got to play together as a team. And I think certainly making a coaching change in the middle of the season doesn't help with that chemistry. At least on offense, it doesn't. And I think, then they go out and sign Davante Adams, to come in and join the team in the middle of the season. So you got to, while they've played together in the past, it's all new chemistry and they got to build something from scratch. And I think that's what it is. I mean, they just don't have time to organically build a championship team there. It's win now. And that's all they can do. And it's not working out.
Davis, what do you think?
Davis.
I think he's a premier evaluator of talent. I mean, he started from nothing. I remember watching Joe on the first episode of Hard Knocks, and he was the Turk, the guy that went to get the playbook. But in circles and guys that I know in the league, he has been a premier evaluator of talent, and that was shown in his first year with the Jets when he got the Rookie of the Year on defense and the Rookie of the Year on offense. That's unheard of for a team to get both offense and defensive Rookie of the Year. So that's that. I mean, I don't think from a talent standpoint that from evaluating talent, there's anybody better. Now he's in the general manager role. I don't know with Aaron Rodgers, how much of that decision was him, how much was Woody Johnson, but he had to go with what he was dealt with Aaron Rodgers, and like Adam said, a guy at the tail end of his career, and they have all their eggs in that basket, and it doesn't seem to be working out at this point in time. So it's tough. It's tough on Joe. I feel bad for Joe. He had the Hassan Reddick thing at the beginning of the season where he was holding out. And I think, what was the guy's name? Jamal Adams. What was the safety's name? His first year was kind of a similar situation. He didn't want to be there. So being a general manager, it's tough because you have to deal with all these people.
There couldn't be. I mean, look, we all know where Joe spent the majority of his career, right? Was in Baltimore, and he started, carrying the briefcase and driving Ozzie Newsome around, and he spent at least 15 years, if not longer. And then I think he went to Chicago or Pittsburgh or Philly. Philly it was. Chicago, and then Philly. And, when you look at organizationally, the continuity that Steve Bisciotti has in Baltimore and John Harbaugh, the second longest tenured coach in the league behind Tomlin in Pittsburgh, and how long their players stay there and so forth, and what they commit to their players. I mean, I think that's how Joe grew up. And I think right now he's working for an owner who has the win now mentality. And when you look at the last, I'm certainly no expert, Sousa, you're more than either of us. Scary calling you an expert in anything, but, certainly, Johnson up there in the Jet with the Jets, it's kind of always been win now. What have you done for me lately? And, until you look at the greatest teams in the league, and, it's going to be interesting to see what Bob Kraft does, how short his leash is as he rebuilds for the first time in 20 years.
Dude, Adam,
the Patriots.
you bring up a great point about about ownership, right? Like I just watched, you guys got to see, did you guys see that documentary about the Red Sox, The Comeback yet?
I watched the first episode.
It's so good, but one of the sticking points that I took away from it was they switched ownership and they broke an 86-year-old, air quotes curse. And it starts at the top, and I'm not this isn't an indictment on Woody Johnson, but it's clear that Belichick doesn't like him. He's not everybody's favorite person. And I think that Joe is, like you guys said, he's in a tough situation. And if you read, I listen to Mad Dog Russo, I read, the Post and all that stuff, and nobody's really coming after Joe. It's just he's just in a tough situation.
Yeah, it's rough on him. I mean, especially, you always think a team's going to come back and win a bunch of games in a row. And like Adam talked about, having Devontae Adams there, you thought, give him another week and things will start turning around. But when you lose to the Patriots, who their head coach called them soft the week before, not a very good football team. It's the lowest of low right now in New York for them. And, the media there is a tough place to be. And I agree with you. I don't see a lot of stuff coming out against Joe, and I think that's fair. But you never know. Hopefully they can turn it around and start to win some football games. But we're pulling. It's funny. We're
we're pulling for him. Wilmo, what's going on with you? Anything personal you want to add before act like yourself, for a second.
Well, I mean, look, so going back to the Commanders, my voice has been losing my voice all day here. Just after the excitement. But I mean, Sousa, you talk about No, I did not go to the game.
But you lost.
I'm not. I lost my voice to yelling. So my son had homecoming on Saturday night. So there was half a dozen kids still at our house watching the game, and some of their parents had come by to pick them up. So it was quite a celebration. But I mean, look, Sousa, to turn the cards on you. I mean, you talk about Davis as a legend in high school. I mean, what about you? I mean, you were one of the greatest football players ever to come out of mainline Philadelphia. I mean, I mean, 6'4", 265 coming to Richmond. We all know
6'6", and I was probably 230. And I didn't have the edge to be like a player of Davis's ilk. I was too soft. But
I mean, if Davis had your speed, he'd probably be in the NFL.
Davis is faster than me. I love, I appreciate it. All this stuff about but I guess I could have been good. What am I saying? I got
to. Before we go,
hey, Wilmo, Davis met Christy, my girlfriend.
Oh, that's amazing. Do we? I mean, two things. So one is the
out of his league, by the way, out of his league. But go ahead.
One is today is the what do they call it? A sports apocalypse, or what do they call it?
Yeah. We were talking. My buddy Cam and I were talking about that. Everybody's playing. Everything's playing.
Everyone's playing. That's amazing. And what about? Can we get a quick Sixers update from a guy on the ground in Philly?
Yeah,
I
mean,
I saw you were with Craig. You were with Craig last week,
Craig Miller, yeah. And look, the Sixers, they're just really hard to root for. You guys may be going this, at least with the Wiz, like they suck, and you guys know what you have, and they're like the underdog. The Sixers have almost been like, remember, like some of the fraternity guys who like wouldn't hang out with us because we were football players when we got to Richmond. Like some of the guys who we considered like rich kids it was just tough to like them. But then when you got to know them, you really did like them, and they were pretty cool. Right now with the Sixers, I'm in my phase of like, I can't relate to these guys. I just can't. I just can't. And it's a shame because I grew up my entire life in the midst of a love affair with the Sixers, but it's hard to like these guys right now.
Hey, we'll take one at a time. We'll take the Redskins' success or the Commanders' success right now, but Lord, we hope the Wizards can turn it around. They've been just as in just as much of a 25, 30-year drought as the Commanders have been. So,
Davis, have you played basketball with Liddell Eccles recently?
No, I haven't. I'm retired from old man basketball, but I did play with. I played against Liddell Eccles and George Muirson.
Hey, Wilmo, have you seen anybody from Richmond lately?
Have I seen anyone? Oh, so at the game Davis was at Episcopal, Kerry Goodwin was at the game, but I sent a text message out to our chat before the game asking for Ramon Streeter, who was a legend at Richmond, him and Kerry Goodwin's phone numbers, and someone gave me Streeter's right away, and I texted him. And then Dave Postilnick didn't write back until after the game, and I'm on my way home, and I text Goodwin, and he was actually at the game. So probably better I didn't see him, but that's okay.
Goodwin now that guy is the elite of the elite. I mean, a guy that kind of had it all and worked for it all, but Kerry is the man.
Yeah,
Kerry Streeter, that's a couple heavy hitters coming out of Episcopal.
That's a couple heavy hitters. Davis and I are going to go down November 23rd. They play William & Mary last game of the year.
Richmond are you guys going to go to that?
Great. We're going to try to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Spiders had a big win against Delaware 2 weeks ago, and they walloped Bryant over
Davis,
the weekend.
If we get a football game, you can't go.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. True. I have one more question for you.
Yeah, go ahead. We got to go.
In regards to the Commanders and the Hail Mary. I watched Rex Ryan. I watched all these people this morning on TV stating that,
doesn't Rex Ryan seem like he could be like Davis's uncle?
No, not with those
100%.
teeth. None of my uncles would have those pearly white teeth. I mean, that's almost too white. Can you have too white of teeth? That's Rex Ryan.
All right, hurry up.
But if he was good, he'd still have a job. But anyways, he's in there saying, oh, you rush 3 and you do this and you do that. But, what is the proper way to defend a Hail Mary? You know what I mean? You rush all 5 or rush 6 guys and then,
I'll tell you one thing. Hold on, Sousa. I'll tell you one thing. It's not what number was he? 27, 28, 29?
29.
It's not standing. I'll tell you one thing. You don't defend the Hail Mary by standing in the corner, flapping your hands like a bird.
Did you see that?
You've already won the game.
And the guy couldn't have played it any better. He literally issued an apology. I mean, so you sort of forgive him because it was a boneheaded move. He was still kind of in position to make the play. Look, the one thing I think the Redskins.
But he's the one that tipped it. He's the one that tipped the ball, Sousa. It was him that tipped the ball
he was trying to knock it down. He was trying to knock it down. He was. The one thing I'll say about, I think they played it well. Baylor got beat earlier this year, my neck of the woods, by not keeping contain on a guy like Shadur Sanders. Like they did, it seemed like they kept him in the pocket, right? Hey man, the magic just happens. I don't know that there is a defense for that, except for maybe your guy not dancing in the corner of the end zone.
It's just like the onside kick. I mean, I tell you, the only thing that really helps is, he had 13 seconds to throw the ball, which, I guess from the defensive side of the ball, strategizing on what to do. Do you rush 1? Do you rush 2? Do you rush 3? Obviously you're not going to rush more than 3. You got to protect the short. What if they want to throw it to the 10-yard line and then you hope for the same thing? Complete lock is catch it at the 10-yard line, throw it up. Start lateraling the ball, and then the other thing in today's day and age is just pass interference. I mean, it's so much easier to get a pass interference call on a Hail Mary. But I mean, there's not really any. It goes to what Davis and you said. It's really luck, and there is no right way to defend it.
Underplayed is the play to Terry McLaurin for like 13 yards before that got them exactly to the point where he can get the ball to the end zone. If they don't get that play, he doesn't have a strong enough arm. They were talking about putting Mariota in the game. The announcers were, and I was like, no way you could put Mariota in the game because he had a stronger arm, but they got to where they needed to get to.
Okay, the announcers, by the way, in your memory, and this is, I swear, the last thing. When's the last time you remember Jim Nantz calling a game?
Hold on, Sousa, I have a great Jim Nantz story. So before I got into what I'm doing today, which is still involved with restaurants, I had a restaurant on 16th Street in D.C. And every year the CBS crew used to come into D.C. They would stay at the St. Regis Hotel. And for 3 or 4 years straight, the restaurant was called BLT Steak, which just closed about 2 months ago after 18 years. And he would come every year to BLT to eat dinner. The night before whatever game he was calling here back then for the Redskins. And every year he would write me a handwritten note that would come from, and his mailing address is like Pebble Beach, Monterey, wherever he lives out there. And he would regularly come to DC for games once a year. Okay. He was doing a game once a year, and he couldn't have been the nicest guy in the world, like hands down nicest individual human being. But to your point, I don't remember him being in DC at least for a dozen years for a game. Yeah. At least, maybe longer.
Yeah, pretty cool. All right, look, we got to go. You guys, I love you both. This was a really good segment. Can we do it again?
Yeah.
Let's do it again. And I love you both more.
Love you guys.
Right,
talk to you soon.
Right. Bye, guys.
Later. Bye-bye.
All right, you can't top that, but Cam Stewart, we'll try next. The Pete Sousa Show.